I'm the last survivor of the Holocaust in our family.
Behind the words, pictures, and artifacts in the museum are people whose stories of survival and hope come alive to inspire new generations of upstanders. One by one, these stories stir the soul.
Can there really be hope for us?
Mine is 4018. My sister was 40017.
Holocaust survivors, their descendants, liberators, champions of justice, and courageous upstanders ask only this: hear my story, so that the lessons they teach will echo for generations.
I will never meet someone else like my father. But there are many of us who, if we come together, can keep his voice alive.
These stories will change you. They will move you to action, inspiring the best of humanity every day.
I'm Trinity Johnson, Director of Holocaust Programs and Museum Experiences. Thank you for being with me today during this special conversation with Holocaust survivors Sara and George Gati. Sara and George, thank you so much for being with me today and having this conversation about your story. It's really an honor.
Our pleasure.
Sara, I'd like to start with you. Will you tell me a little bit about your parents, Jacob and Rose? I understand they were both from Poland.
Yes.
And met along kind of their escape from Nazism. But tell me what you know about their life before the war.
Apparently my parents knew each other in Poland, but didn't really date too much. But, my mother was a very Zionist and always wanted to go to Israel. But anyway, during the war, both of them left on foot. They didn't know where they were going. They were just escaping. They heard about Hitler and stuff like that, so they were walking. As they were walking, there was a lot more people that joined them, or they were already on the road. And after a few days or something like that, they heard planes above them shooting down at them. So they happened to find some kind of ditch or some place where they were able to hide until the shooting stopped. And then they continued walking. Then after that, they were caught in Russia. And they were put into a forced labor camp. The men were cutting down trees, and the women were stacking them. And I was born there in the woods, and it was my birthplace is called Gorky, was called Gorky. It is not called. It's called Novog something since then. I don't remember what it's called, but I was born there in the woods. When my mother went into labor, she was walking, and I'm sure the snow was like up to her wherever, and as she was walking, but she didn't quite make it. I don't know where she was walking to. They found out that there was a midwife there, and the midwife is the one that delivered me. After that, we were in several other camps like that. One of them was Tashkent. One of them was, what is that called? Where they're fighting right now.
In the Ukraine?
Ukraine, and I was also in Siberia, and there were some in between, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, so we know that the war began in Poland in 1939 when the Germans invaded, and so early on your parents start walking, and the first camp that you were in, you said Gorky, was in 1941, and that's when you were born in 41. Right. In all the subsequent camps that you've just mentioned, was your family always together? Were they able to stay together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where, once I was born, I don't know where they put me, because they both had to, work. Cutting down trees and things. So I don't know if there was, I'm sure there was no daycare, but anyway, you know. So I actually had a lot of the children's sicknesses during the war, and I was put. I don't remember, but my mother talked about it. One thing that she talked about, because she never did talk too much about the war, but I had measles or chicken pox, and I was put into a room with another child who had, I don't know what else, you know. And I kind of remember the story that goes on, that my mother she was not allowed to go in, but there was like a little window that she could look through where I was. But this other child had some other childhood disease, and I was lucky enough to get that child's disease too. So I had chicken pox or maybe measles from that other child, but you know.
And in hearing you talk about your parents and knowing here they were newlyweds on the run, they have a newborn baby, they're, in multiple forced labor camps. To me, that just really communicates a level of strength and resilience, right? Very brave as well to be looking out for a newborn baby. So I'm sure at the end, when you're in this hospital and they were now separated by glass, that was probably very difficult for your family to not have you right there with them anymore. And I'm sure very worried after all that you had already survived. Go ahead.
But I wanted to say too that my mother was a very strong woman. If it wouldn't have been for my mother, I don't think my father would have made it. I don't think so. She was the one who, was the tough one. Yeah, she was the glue.
Wonderful. What was your father like?
My father was a very nice person. Not that my mother wasn't, but she was a type 10, A personality. My father was a little bit easier going. He was sweet. He was a barber, and I don't know what else to tell him. I love him, and I miss him. I miss both of them.
Well, I thank you for helping us tell their story, their incredible story. So after you were eventually, where were you liberated?
In Russia.
In Russia.
Yeah, I mean, when the war was over, look, my parents did not tell us, my brother or me, anything. I mean, so I tried to go and find out, more relatives, but I don't have any names or anything to go by. But we were, once the war was over, Russia let us go, and that's where we were liberated.
Okay, and then what did you do?
After that, we went on the train. They were going back to Poland to see who survived. And my mother's family, nobody survived. She had a sister, and she had two brothers. But the one brother was actually killed. He was on his bicycle by a car. And so anyway, and her sister was the older one, and she had a little boy actually. And she gave that boy away to a church, to a monastery, something like that, for safekeeping. Well, when our parents, after the war, were going on the train to Poland to find out, my mother tried to find this child. But she didn't know where that child was given away. So who knows? Maybe this child became a priest, for all I know. Anyway, so I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, after
Your father had two surviving brothers, I understand?
Two surviving brothers, yeah. One of them was a stowaway. I have a feeling he was trying to get to the United States, because a lot of people were doing it. And then he was caught. Gosh, I wish I would have looked it up yesterday, because I talked about it. He was caught someplace in Africa. It's the east northern part of Africa, and I think the country it starts with a G, but I can't remember. And I was going to look it up, but I didn't. Anyway, so he was put into prison there, and then after the war, he married a French woman, and they stayed in France. They never had any children. His other brother apparently was in one of the camps in Germany with us, but they emigrated to Israel. But in Germany, we were in several camps too. We were at least in three or four, moving from one to the other.
So that brings me to something that's kind of interesting about your story is when we think about people being in displaced persons camps, trying to get back home and see, who and what survived. It is kind of a bittersweet aspect of recovery, of also discovering who lived and unfortunately who died. But then many people met and married and had children in displaced persons camps. And some of your earliest, fondest memories are in displaced persons camps. And so from Poland, where did you go? Tell us a little bit about some of the displaced persons camps you were in. And I understand Israel is mixed in there as well. So make sure you tell us a little bit about that as well.
Okay. We were in Gibbelstadt, one of them. I wish I would have brought the paper with me.
These are in Germany, correct?
This is in Germany.
Okay.
Gibbelstadt. Fehrenwald was the last one that we were in. We were in several of them. I don't remember. My memory is not so good anymore either. Gibbelstadt, Fehrenwald.
And was this before you went to Israel, or is this you went from Poland to Israel and then
No.
Germany?
We went from Poland to Germany and into the DP camps, and we were there. And as my mother wanted to really go to Israel, in 1948 we were going to Israel, but then my mother was pregnant with my brother, and we couldn't go. So in 1949, we actually did go to Israel. 1949, Israel was really a mess. Everybody was coming to Israel. There was not too much food, no place to live. Actually, we lived for 9 months in a tent, and it was called Pardes Chana. It was a part of Tel Aviv. And it snowed actually there. But we were living there for 9 months, and my dad was a barber, and a barber can always find a job. But for 9 months, he didn't, and he said, "We're going back. This is not what I came for." And so we packed up again and went back to Germany, to one of the camps, and that was Fehrenwald.
And that's such an interesting choice to make, right? Especially after being in a camp system, knowing that it's different in the displaced persons camps, but still in the same setting, right?
Yeah,
So what a decision for your parents to decide to go back to Germany, right? Back to the aggressor country, and then back into a place that had been a camp. So you go back to, say it one more time.
Fehrenwald?
Fehrenwald.
And it was an American-run camp.
And what are some of your memories there?
I actually had a good time over there. I had a lot of friends. We had a place that we called a Jewish center, where we went there and we had parties and stuff like that. We went swimming. Well, we went swimming in the river. I had a lot of friends.
And you went back to school, right?
I started school over there. I mean, there was no school, but they took one of the rooms, and some of the older people were teaching, but they were teaching Hebrew. And my mother did not like me going just learning Hebrew. She said, I have to learn the ABCs, to get out in the world. So she went out of camp. I don't know who she went to talk to, but she went to several places. She said, I want my daughter going to a regular public school. And it took some while, and I did go to a public school. I was 7 years old, and I passed first grade and second grade. I actually started later on, actually also, but going to the first grade and second grade, I was not very happy because the kids were making fun of me because I was Jewish, and they were telling me that the Santa Claus is not going to bring me any toys and stuff like that. And I was not happy being there. I would have rather stayed in camp with my friends. But after, I did also go to high school, and that was in further away. It was not in the same place, and I would go by train to high school.
So when did your family decide to come to the United States? I know Hyas helped your family come here, and you went to Florida first, correct?
Yeah, we had not a sponsor because you couldn't come to the United States if you didn't have any family, cousins or anything like that. So we came to New York in 1956, December of 1956. And then from there, we went 2 days with a train to Florida, Miami, Florida, because that's where our sponsor, they didn't sponsor us. They just gave us their name, And we were put up into a hotel, and we stayed we didn't get to meet the people who helped us come to the United States.
Do you remember their names?
And that's a sore spot to this day. We couldn't thank them for it. I mean, So anyway, they put us up into a Hotel Tamiyami, and we stayed there for 3 months. My mother had malaria during the war, and with Florida weather, she started getting malaria back because the malaria bug stays in you forever. You never get rid of it. So they had to start looking. Jewish Family Service in Florida had to start looking for a city, a state who would accept us. And Cincinnati, Ohio came through. But staying in that hotel for 3 months, none of us spoke English. So anyway, we stayed there. We went to the restaurant in the hotel, and we pointed to what we wanted to eat. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't so good, but anyway. So after that, since we came to Cincinnati, and it's a great city. Great.
Yeah.
Really a lot of nice people. Very friendly, very friendly.
Yeah, and so one thing, both of you participated in a project that both our organization, the Holocaust and Humanity Center, partnered with Jewish Family Service on, called Holding Hope. And it's a beautiful book. We can't wait to release that in 2026 and have a special exhibition with that and your stories highlighted in there. There was a really beautiful quote, though, about kind of your time in Cincinnati that I wanted to read and just kind of get your reaction and hear a little bit more about what it was like then to finally come here and settle and kind of officially rebuild in Cincinnati. You said, I went to school had a great group of friends, and was really happy there. We're talking about Furrenwald. I was a child, and it was the happiest home I had known. After we settled in Cincinnati, I resumed schooling at Woodward High School. I was unhappy because the kids weren't very nice to me. I cried to my mother that I wanted to go back to Furrenwald. I felt like the DP camp was my home. She said, "You can't go back. There is no life for us there." So it took a while, but eventually things got better. I learned English and started over. And I think that's so beautiful because, to your point, you said Cincinnati is such a wonderful city.
is.
So tell me a little bit about settling here in Cincinnati. And then we're going to pull George in because I know George is a very special aspect of your life here in
Yes,
Cincinnati.
very. Yeah. Well, I mean, when I went to Woodward High School, obviously I didn't know any English. I had gotten 2 English classes. I got math. That one I was able to do. At one point or another, I had biology, and I had to dissect a frog, and I said, "I'm not doing it." And they told me in a way that I understood that if you don't do it, you're going to flunk. You're going to get an F. Well, I didn't want to get an F. So I had to do this gross stuff. But eventually, I made friends. But it was hard to make friends because I went to Woodward High School. And at that time, Woodward High School had the groups with boys and girls.
Oh, like a sorority or
So yeah,
fraternity.
they had sororities and fraternities, and I was not there. I mean, I didn't belong to a sorority. I didn't know any English. I must have come someplace from up the sky. So it was hard, and I'm sorry to say that a lot of the Jewish kids did not help me, but a lot of the Christian kids, they would take me by my hand and help me to go to gym class, put on my gym gear and stuff like. They're the ones who helped me. Unfortunately, I don't remember their names, but the Jewish kids were snobs.
No.
Anyway, so it was hard. I came here as a 15-year-old, and it's very hard to have all those changes as a 15-year-old. You don't know the language, you don't know anything, you don't have any friends and stuff like that. So that's when I was saying, I want to go back home. My mother said, there is no home over there.
How difficult was it for your parents to really settle in Cincinnati and find work and learn English?
When I learned English, because we spoke Yiddish at home, Jewish at home. But once I learned English, I started talking to my parents in English because I wanted them to learn English. My father was a barber, and he had to go out, and he didn't actually have to know English that well to cut hair. But so I started talking English to them, and it stuck. That's all we talked at home. But my mother never worked here. My father was a barber. He worked for somebody at first. He had to go to Columbus to take the license for the barber, and then he worked for somebody else. And a few years later, he opened up his own barber shop. So it was good.
Do you remember where in Cincinnati that was?
Yeah, on Vine Street.
On Vine Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, where he was with somebody else's barber shop, it was on Vine Street, and he moved a little bit further down, and it was on Vine Street. Yes, close to the library.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing a little bit about your story. I want to pull you back in when we get to your beautiful story of meeting each other. George, I want to switch to you. I understand that you were born in Hungary in 1938. Can you tell us anything about your family before the war?
1938, I was born in Debrecen.
Speak up louder.
It was, at that time, Hungary was okay for the Jewish people. Later on, it changed. That was in 38.
Speak up.
Okay.
So I know that you've said that it definitely changed once it was occupied by the Nazis in 44, and many Jews started to be deported to camps like Auschwitz. Your parents, Joseph and Margaret, were separated. He was sent to Russia, I understand, right?
Yes.
And you were able to stay with your mother, your brother Mordecai, and your grandparents. But you also didn't stay in Hungary. Do you remember where they sent you?
Well, see, as Hitler, excuse me, as Hitler was losing, Hungary went into the war in 1944. They were the last ones, actually, because the Hungarian government said that we will take care of the Jews over here. And they did. They had a place for them. I mean, they took them out from their own homes and put them in sort of in a group together. But then when Hitler was really losing, that's when they had to go to. They went to Vienna because they didn't, And so, can you tell them the story about when you went to Vienna?
After from Hungary, they took us to Vienna. Well, they were going to take us to Germany, but the Viennese people, who Hitler was from Vienna too, they asked him that some of the Jews stay there to clean the street because of the war. So we went to Vienna and was in a camp. And as a child, I stayed inside in that big camp area.
School.
And the adults had to go to work. It was good until get to the close to the end of the war, and the end of the war, the Germans said we have to go to Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. So they take us from the camp place where we were,
And I believe that camp was called Strasshof, right? In
Strasshof.
Vienna, Strasshof.
Yeah, and we went on a train and to go to Germany.
And this is also where I would love to bring in a part of your story from Holding Hope, because you explain that journey, and I think the way you described it was very, it almost plays out in my mind, just the way you vividly describe it. You say, so you've been loaded onto a cattle car, you're still with your mother, your brother, and your grandparents, as you said, heading to Auschwitz now from
Yes.
Austria. And all of a sudden, the train comes to a stop. And you say, it was quiet for a long time, and then all of a sudden there was shooting. We thought that they were going to kill us right there, that we wouldn't go any further. Standing in the cattle car, I could feel every bullet, but our car didn't get hit by a single one. We figured they were shooting us one car at a time. It was unbelievable how long they were shooting before it stopped. They came to our car, and I heard the lock being cut off. There was a small door that opened near the floor, and a man looked inside. Can you tell us what happened after that man looked inside?
And they said, you're free, you can go home.
That's correct. Didn't know what happened, and
no help, right? From
Yeah,
what I understand, he just walked away, said you're free, and the soldiers walked
was
away.
end of the war.
Yeah.
And turned around and went out of that area. They fought the the Germans were on the other side on a train, and the Russians were there already, and they fought, and the Germans were killed, or I don't know what happened to them, but that was the end of the war.
Yeah, so the Russians come upon the train, they kill all the Nazis, you're
Yes.
free, and then you walked back home. You do eventually go back to Hungary, correct?
Eventually, we went back to Hungary. It wasn't very far from the Hungarian border, but it's fairly far from Hungary where we lived in the eastern part of Hungary.
And in many places, Hungary, very similar. Hungary didn't just miraculously go back to normal. It was still politically very chaotic, also not safe for Jews, many Jews returning home. And a lot of that situation is what made you make the decision to come to America with your friend. Do you remember making that decision to come here?
It was long after. I mean, I went to Hungary, I went to school, and so on. And after that, uh, Hungary was under the Russians, and the Hungarians were against the Russians. And after the Russians says, well, heck with it, and they went out. And that's the border opened up. And that's when I left Hungary and came to the United States. And that was the only opportunity to get out of Hungary, because no longer the Russians were there. The Russian kept locked the border, but when they left, the border opened up, and I got out.
And your mother died shortly after the war. She had pneumonia and was ill. You were reunited with your father, and you were still with your brother and your grandparents. Was that a difficult decision to leave your remaining family and start over in America?
No, they felt that it's better for me, so they let me go. And I got out and went to Austria and wanted to come to the United States. And there were always opportunity to get to somewhere where take you to United States. And I did get on a train and eventually got to the United States. In the United States, they asked me where do I want to go, and says anywhere where they take me in. So that's the way I got to Cincinnati, and in Cincinnati, the Jewish agency it took me and took me somebody's house, and I stayed there until I started to school and learn English. It was a tough time. Didn't know a word of English. Hungarian is not spoken in the United States. And then I went to last year in Woodward High School. When I say last year, well, I was older than that, but had to go somewhere. And after Woodward High School, went to University of Cincinnati, and meanwhile I learned English and finished the university and eventually started to work.
You finished bachelor's degree master's degree, and you also went for a doctor's degree. And what happened then?
Went to work.
No, 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 no. You know, when you finished up all the things that you needed for your PhD, but then apparently it came was they were saying anybody with a PhD this will have to leave. He was working at GE at that time, so they were saying that they're going to have to leave with the PhD because they want him. So then he said, "Well, then I'm not going to take my test." He finished up all the classes, but he did not want to leave because my parents were here, I was here, and so he says, then I will not take my test. So, you know.
So I didn't finish, and I started to work at General Electric, and it was a good job. Worked there for, I don't remember now how many years, and at the end when I retired, I left GE, and that was a long time ago, and GE
Speak up.
has pay a monthly payment, and it didn't stop. It kept on going. Even today, I'm getting it. So
We did a lot of great work there.
yeah,
So of
yes,
course.
yes. And
When you left Hungary with your friend, did your friend also come to Cincinnati or did he go somewhere else?
He left with two friends.
Oh, two friends. Okay. Did they also come to Cincinnati?
One of them stayed in New York because they went, to New York, or I don't know if they went to New York, but he stayed in New York, and Peter and George came to Cincinnati.
Okay. So Peter did come here. You remained close with Peter then.
at that time,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Well, and so you also mentioned Woodward High School. You also mentioned Woodward High School. I think it's pretty obvious how you two met, but I'd love one of you to tell me that story, how you met. It's one of my favorites.
Well, I was at Woodward High School, and Peter, I actually I went out with Peter on a date.
That I didn't know. That's news to me.
But they were both living in the same place, with another refugee, Well, so anyway, they were living on the third floor, and I knew those people. So anyway, the people were telling me, we have some nice Jewish boys I want you to meet. And so I met Peter, and I did have a date with Peter, and it was the one date only. And so George and I saw each other because we lived in Avondale. We saw each other on the bus, and eventually, I don't even know how it happened, but we started dating, and here we are.
So you met each other riding the bus to school, which I think is so beautiful and cute. Did you help one another, during the day at school, or no?
No.
Since you both were still learning English?
Well, neither one of us spoke any English. I don't know how
you communicated? How did you communicate? Do you remember?
No.
No?
I mean,
love doesn't
that's
need
right,
a lot of communication,
yeah.
right?
Anyway, well, no, he went to Woodward only for 1 year, because I went to Woodward. They put me back a year because I didn't know the language, and so I stayed in Woodward until I graduated, and then he after the 1 year he went to UC. I think he went 1 year to 1 year. You didn't go into engineering right away. You went to some kind of just 1 year to learn English or whatever. So
When did you two get married then?
Did we get married? No, we got married in 1950. When did we get married? So, trying to remember actually. 57, 56.
Again, when it's love, the rest is history, right?
No, we got married in 1962.
Sounds good.
1962, I think.
At what point while you were talking, was it always known that you both had survived the Holocaust, or did you share that early on, or how much did the Holocaust factor into your relationship?
I mean, we talked about it, but, I mean, like I said, I don't remember much about the Holocaust. I was 5 years old, 41 to 45 was over. So I didn't know much about, and my parents did not talk about it. They just, it was just too hard to talk about it. But I don't know. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
How much, or I mean, at what point did you even need to tell each other that you had both survived, or was that an unspoken bond between you two?
I think it was an unspoken bond. We talked a little bit about, where I was and that last camp in Fernwald, I had a great time over there. I had a boyfriend there and stuff like that. I actually, my boyfriend
I hope
left.
George knows this part.
Yes, he does. Anyway, I had a boyfriend there, but my boyfriend's family moved to Munich out of the camp from Fernwald, and I actually went to see him. I can't believe my mother, who was very strict, let me go there, and so I went to see him in Munich. But we came back in 1956 is when we left for United States.
Well, the one thing that I love is I always learn something new. Every time I speak with both of you, there's always one little tidbit that you bring into the story. And it's always such an honor to be with you, to laugh with you, and to also hear your amazing stories. Thank you for being with me today. But I do want to just ask, for anyone who watches this episode or even hears your story or reads about it in Holding Hope or sees it as part of that exhibit in 2026, what do you hope they take away from your story?
I thank God for bringing me here to the United States. Before that, we went from one place to another, and I didn't know. I had a hard time because in the beginning, I didn't speak any English. I didn't have any friends, and I kept on wanting to go back to Germany to Camp Fernwald, because that's where we were last. Because I had a great time over there. I had a lot of friends. I had a boyfriend, and here I came, and they stuck me in a school. Didn't know any English. Kids were not very friendly to me, and I wanted to go back home. My mother said, "This is home."
But it definitely worked out to your advantage. Well, thank you both so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
To make sure you don't miss an episode, subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. Our email is in the show notes. You can also connect with us on Instagram and TikTok at Holocaust and Humanity, and X and Facebook at CincyHHC. Hear My Story is a production of the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center. The center's mission is to ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust inspire action today. This series is part of the Cynthia and Harold Gutman Family Center for Storytelling and is generously supported by Margaret and Michael Valentine. Visit us in person at Historic Union Terminal in Cincinnati, Ohio, or online at holocaustandhumanity.org. Managing producer is Ann Thompson. Consulting producer is Joyce Kamen. Technical producer is Robert Mills. Technical director is Josh Emerson. Select music is by Kik Lee. This is recorded at the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanity Center in Cincinnati, Ohio.